crisis began on October 14th when photographs taken during a scouting flight over Cuba by a U.S. U-2 spy plane revealed that the Soviet Union, America's Cold War adversary, had secretly started building bases for medium-range ballistic missiles on the island located less than 90 miles from the U.S. coast. Some argue that the Soviets wanted to protect their ally, Cuba, from the United States, which had tried various means to topple Fidel Castro following his assumption of power. President John F. Kennedy learned the news 2 days later and met with his top advisors, later dubbed the Executive Committee of the National Security Council. Together, they decided how to respond. Since the missiles, if operational and equipped with nuclear warheads, could quickly destroy targets within the United States, Kennedy and his advisors agreed that the weapons presented a grave threat and needed to be removed. The ExComm debated how best to do so. At first, Kennedy and the ExComm favored a military response, with options ranging from airstrikes on the missile bases to an all-out invasion of Cuba. The military alternative lost favor. However, ExComm members became more and more concerned that it could provoke a Soviet response that might lead to a general war. Ultimately, Kennedy elected not to shoot the missiles out. The president, during an ExComm meeting held on October 20th, 1962, instead chose to surround Cuba with a naval blockade called a quarantine for international legal reasons. The blockade designed to squeeze the missiles out and prevent the Soviet Union from introducing more weapons or warheads into Cuba. It offered several advantages over a military strike. It was flexible, as it offered Kennedy and his advisors the option of increasing pressure on the USSR to remove its missiles if need be. The president's brother, Robert F. Kennedy, also argued that, quote unquote, the Soviet Union had secretly established missile bases in Cuba while at the same time proclaiming privately and publicly that this would never be done. We, the United States, had to have a commitment by tomorrow that those bases would be removed. I was not giving them an ultimatum but a state of fact. He should understand that if they did not remove those bases, we would remove them. President Kennedy had great respect for the ambassador's country and the courage of its people. Perhaps his country might feel it necessary to take retaliatory action, but before that was over, there would be not only dead Americans, but dead Russians as well. The crisis and the White House response remained secret until October 22nd, when President Kennedy, in a nationally televised address, informed the American people about the missiles and announced the quarantine of Cuba. Answers came 2 days later, on October 24th, when several Soviet ships turned back from the quarantine line. The Soviets, through numerous channels, including a letter from Khrushchev to President Kennedy on October 26th, proposed a solution. The Soviet Union would remove its missiles if the United States lifted the blockade and pledged not to invade Cuba. On October 27th, President Kennedy had wrote back to Khrushchev, accepting his terms by removing the missiles in exchange for lifting the blockade and issuing a non-invasion pledge towards Cuba. This has finally put an end to the Cuban Missile Crisis.